Now, the questions that many Nigerians will ask, often I know they do this at beer parlors or wherever they gather, would be, so are we blind to see this thing? So why are we so difficult to get this, for people to buy into this, for government officials to buy into it, for politicians to buy into it, for even economists to buy into this? Why is it so difficult?
Well, I'm happy you use the word we, because it's a collective thing. Yes, the stagnation of 2 decades took its toll. Yes, the mindset of the policymaker, even the donor agencies, we thought that the problem we had during the stagnation, it wasn't only Nigeria that faced stagnation from 1980 to 1999. Some other developing countries faced the same stagnation. Some others, as a matter of fact, thrived in the face of the stagnation. We were not the only one that had external debt.
Yeah.
South Korea was a bigger debtor than Nigeria. I think they were the 4th largest debtor after 3 Latin American countries, Argentina,
Brazil.
Mexico, and Brazil. That were the 3 biggest. But all of them, I would think, did better than Nigeria in facing, in spite of bigger debt. And the key fault that Nigerian policymakers thought that they had, during the oil boom, was they had an exaggerated expectation of income. They thought that
the
income,
money will keep flowing.
Yeah, and therefore they embarked on too many projects too rapidly. That when the crunch came, we had so many abandoned projects, littered all over the country, and we were indebted, So that's, put the fear. Everybody was. That's why we do, if you like, this oil price benchmarking. Yes. That's why we have excess crude account. Yes. When the revenue started building up, the Obasanjo regime was too timid to commit to capital projects because of the overcommitment that they had experienced at the time of the oil boom. But still, you still have to balance, So I think that's why government had been slow in trying to tie down these proceeds to capital projects. But we've been at this now
for a while,
about a decade, and we've seen the situation that the money saved during the first wave of the boom, $60 billion, in just 1.5 years or 2 years of contraction, the money,
gone.
And it would. There's nobody who is not going to draw down on savings in the face of a global crisis. But if the savings had not been there, e.g., if they had been committed
to projects,
e.g., to rail projects, in the face of the crisis, the government would still have survived. They would have survived in the same way that the European governments are surviving.
Yes.
They are cutting
costs,
spending.
Yes.
They are levying taxes. In England, the VAT was like 17.5 before the crisis. It has gone above 20% now.
We are still using 5%.
We have 5%. It's going to be 20 years, in 2 years, that we introduced the VAT, and it's still 5%. So it's not as if we couldn't invest the windfall. We can, if we look inward. I mean, there is a lot of non-oil growth happening in the economy that you can tax, to provide needful infrastructure. So I don't think it's a day issue, it's a we issue. If it's taken this time to dawn on us, I think we should all now, it doesn't matter how long it has taken us for it to occur to us, now that it's occurred to us.
We should
I do think we should all, the same way we made an issue of disruptions to power supply, and it became a very strong national debate, and the national consensus has been built, that issue has to be resolved. And they are not going to it's not going to take 25 years, it's going to happen as soon as possible. I think rail should be put
on that same pedestal.
Now that we probably now have resolved power in a few quarters, we should begin to see positive changes. We should make rail an
issue. Okay, now the next question, or I think the progression to that would be, must it be a government-owned thing? Is it not possible, just like you said, I mean, in one of your statements now, that you can actually raise a bond, and tie it up, to the project? So why can't we just find a way to do what we did to NEPA, break it up, and let private investors come and buy into it? Is that not possible?
Well, it's going to be impossible for the government to do it on its own. It's going to be impossible. And as
But
you say,
it's going to be impossible for government
yes,
to do the
if we're
investment
talking
on its
of,
own. Yes.
High speed
Trains,
rail
service,
systems
yes.
in all the 6 geopolitical zones. I think there is going to be a role for the federal government. There is going to be a role for the state governments. There is going to be a role for foreign technical partners, and there's going to be a role for the private sector. Look, there's going to be a role for you and I. We will probably have to sacrifice something. So it's something that everybody must have a part in. But the payoffs are huge. It's not just the transportation; it's also the shopping. Each terminus you can
We now create
all these. Just like you could airport terminals.
Yes.
You have
yes.
public-private partnership. They could put that up. You can do the same for the
rail lines.
terminuses. No, the terminuses.
I know.
Can,
yes. Okay.
where people could use their own money and recover it over time. It's something that everybody will have to bring something to the table, but it has to be championed by the federal government, especially federal and state governments, more like the federal, the National Economic Council has to champion this because they are the ones. It's made up of all the states and the federal government. Most issues that are national in all national economic issues, they have to make the final recommendations. That is debt management or making use of the excess crude savings.
Okay.
To
do that.
The National Economic Council that will do that. And I think that this rail reform, needs to have a strong backing. That's where you have the state governments and the federal governments.
Okay. Now, do we have a position by private collectives to push, this agenda? Do we have maybe from the economic front or from maybe investors forum? Is there anything like that on the table? Do you have an inkling if there's anything like that anywhere?
Well, I guess with time that will emerge. I guess the advocacy has been stronger for power reform, and we've seen the result. I think you need a similarly strong sort of concerted advocacy for the reform.
Okay, now this is. I'm just going to spring this on you. Somebody is just joking somewhere. He says, "Look, why did God create economists?" And he says, "Well, to make weather forecasters look very funny." Now, the people are saying that economic projections or predictions don't seem to hold waters. One moment you say if you go this way, this is going to happen. If you go this way, that's going to happen. But at the end of the cycle, it doesn't happen that way. Why does it? Why is that so?
Oh, well, if we're talking about economic forecasts, you have to be careful. Economic forecasts are not prophecies. They are conditional forecasts. But if event A happens, then event B will result. So you have to focus very much on the if
Factors.
and the then. If A is observed, then B will occur. If A doesn't occur,
Then B.
don't expect B. Right. And the economics also is economic outcomes is contingent on the
Political will.
policy actions. So the outcome that you will expect will be dependent on the actions that are taken in policy circles. However, there you have generic components
Situations.
of the economic evolution. For example, today's Nigerian economy will be driven first and foremost by global shocks. We've discussed 80s and 90s when the economy stagnated because global commodities fell. We are discussing what has happened since about year 2000, that the economy has now resumed recovery because global commodity prices rose.
Have gone up.
So there are components that you can easily analyze and predict. That if commodity prices are favorable, because we are commodity producers, whether
We'll benefit.
you are talking oil or you are talking crops, if commodity prices...
Maybe we shouldn't talk about crops. Let's just talk about oil, because our crops are virtually dead. Anyway, I think I should let you just go on.
Interesting. As a matter of fact, crops are the single largest source of growth in the Nigerian economy today.
Today?
Yes. More than 50% of the GDP growth comes from crops.
Okay.
Because of favorable global crop prices. Right. So you can predict that, that if the global commodity prices were to fall today and remain low, much of Nigeria's growth will fizzle out. Right. So those components you can predict. What becomes a bit more difficult to predict are internal, interactions. The government response as they should when they should. You can predict that as well, but a situation in which needful interventions are being withheld,
or slowed down.
Why should Nigeria be a major exporter of crude oil, but imports refined products?
Why should Nigeria be a major exporter of crude oil and imports refined products?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back. We are not going anywhere. Just take a break, take a breather, and then we'll continue. It's still close flow or NTA to Lagos Network Center.